Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Wherever you may be joining us today, I'm Sebastian, leading the Acodus Distributed Ledger program, and I'm your host today. We're thrilled to have you here with us for this special LinkedIn Live event. If you've been following our Thinkers and Makers magazine, you might come across an article titled CryptoGin highlights the potential of blockchain technology. It's a really compelling example of anchoring physical products in the digital world. So if you missed that out, I highly recommend you to read that, download it. We will put the link into the comments, and so check that out. Today, we aim to focus on the future, discuss what lies ahead of us, and how we position ourselves to enable companies and industries to catch up with these new technologies. Having the right partnership is essential for that. So it's not just about building a solution in isolation, it's about creating an ecosystem, fostering innovation through collaboration. In that spirit, we invited some of our fantastic partners and their remarkable projects to join us today. They will share insights on how to impact and innovate with DLT in various sectors, as well. Maybe they will give us a clue of what challenges occurred while doing so. So let's start with Adrie Wischmann, a co-founder of Blockchain Lab Drenthe, located in the Netherlands and founder of Multiknip. Multiknip is a platform that is pioneering the field of earmarked funds. So what is that? It's a unified wallet that accumulates various purpose-specific coins issued by private and public entities. And that is nothing that's just on paper or on a concept. This innovation is already used by hundreds of thousands of people in the Netherlands, many who maybe not realize that blockchain is powering their experience. Also with us today, Terry Shane, founder of the Biotasphere based in Toronto, Canada. He is a well-respected public speaker on the topic, and he develops projects using the IOTA DEX-based blockchain. And Terry has been working closely with the Dyson School of Engineering and the Imperial College London on piloting circular economy projects like CupCrush. But that's not all. He's also currently engaged in supply chain, trade, and logistic projects, and he thinks that governments will soon widely use blockchain and distributed ledger in global trade and finance. Last but not least, Holger Köter is today with us. He is a co-founder of Spice and Build5, located in Germany. Both companies are making significant progress in the Web3, and Spice5 is renowned for its comprehensive range of Web3 tools and blockchain infrastructure. And these tools and resources are extremely important for enterprises, builders, and creators like us. Why? Because it dramatically simplifies the process of establishing a presence and building on Web3. So thank you for providing that service. So let's jump right into the first topic. It's in which sectors do you think DLT can really create a value and have an impact? Let's start with Adrie. What are your thoughts on that topic?
To me, it's very simple. I think that in large organizations for trading, but also government, the administrative process will be simplified a lot by using distributed ledger technology. So that's where you can make a lot of profit in time and effort, and that's where DLT, in my opinion, really shines. So the process behind blockchain, the process behind distributed ledger technology will help to lower administrative burden, will decrease fraud and misuse, etc. And those are very big leaps to be made. Now, we as a company, we already did some of these projects for the province of Drenthe in our country. Within Interreg Project Bling, we developed, for instance, a self-sovereign attendancy app, which is an app that people can use to prove they were at a certain conference or at a certain course, etc., and without compromising your privacy. Which will help students, but also medical professionals and financial professionals, people who have to prove personal education points, etc. And what we did, you already mentioned it, we used Knip. And Knip is a Dutch word for a money wallet, and that is also being used to combat fraud and lower administrative burden. What we did in Holland is we have this wallet which can have denominations in kilos, in minutes, in euros, but in all kinds of stuff, and which you can use as purpose-bound money. And purpose-bound money is very, very powerful, because the issuer of the money can really define who gets how much, where you can spend it, on what, and when. So I'll give you a few examples, because this might hear like a little bit of an abstract thing. As a reminder, I have a picture. So we already used it for saving energy and improving sustainability in domestic housing, where people got coins in their wallet with which they could only purchase energy-saving measures. But also you can use it for social inclusion, where these coins can be issued, for instance, for families that are unable to pay for the soccer fees, the monthly fees of their soccer for their children. Well, you can give them coins, and they can only be used for paying the soccer club, right? And you cannot buy lottery tickets and beer. But also the health of employees. Let's say you have a budget of 20,000 euros and you want to help your employees become healthier. You can give them coins in their wallet with which they can only pay fitness centers and personal trainers and not buy alcohol and cigarettes. So there are lots of things. And this might also be a nice example to show you maternity care. Here in Holland, we had a project called Blockchain Baby. And let me explain that a little bit. It's a project where, in the conventional way, new parents get maternity care a few hours a day, etc. And at the end of the day, this caregiver would have a piece of paper you would sign for the number of hours they worked. They would send it to the insurance company, and 60 days later they get paid, etc. Now, in this instance, the parents would get 15 hours of maternity care in their wallet, and at the end of the afternoon, this caregiver could say, "Hey, I worked 3 hours. Please give me 3 hours from your wallet into my wallet," and the next day he or she would get euros in their bank account, and decreasing the administrative process. Like I said, decreasing fraud, misuse, etc. So that's where I think the biggest leap, the biggest profits can be made, and the number of use cases are incredibly broad. There's an enormous spectrum. These are only a few examples.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Arthur. That was really nice to have finally some real pictures in the head, what is actually behind that and where we can use it. And this is all software solutions. And for all this, you need kind of infrastructure to interact with these new networks. So question to Holger, where do you see the synergies, and also in regards to the question we have above? So what is the areas where you want to provide some added value?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sebastian. I see two big industries at the moment, which are picking up rapidly on speed. Like the first one is the gaming ecosystem with like interoperable assets, and we can how to say, symbolize assets with NFTs, and then you can trade them to other games to unlock something there. So it's great for partner building, for synergies in the games. And then when we talk about the real world use cases, it's tokenization of assets. So tokenization of assets, it's going to be like $1 trillion industry like over the next 6 to 7 years. Everything is going to be tokenized, stocks, bonds, shares, because a blockchain is really good at one thing, which is to understand and document who has how much of what and provides a single truth for this. And we can use this for better automation. And then when we look a little bit like further, there are then different types of infrastructures which are required. Especially in the privacy sector. So to be privacy preserving, because it doesn't make sense that we do a tokenization of assets, but then everybody would know, let's say, how many stocks I would own because it's a public record on the blockchain. So of course, this needs to be private. And this is then where we are seeing over the past years, like a transformation. So for the ones who have been in the blockchain market or in the ecosystems, like since 2017, you probably saw that in 2017, 2018, a lot of large companies, they started to create their own blockchain. And then they discovered that they are probably not the global player. I don't know, they think they are, because their blockchain launch was very often not successful. But this is also because blockchain, in the end, it's a team game. So just pushing out by yourself with something, but not really looping in or getting the support from like any peers, let's say in the automotive industry, to start an automotive chain. Daimler tried this in 2018, but then they quickly deprecated it again because, of course, the other automotives, they didn't really want to join a Daimler chain in the end. And then the whole market started to pivot towards consortium or federated chains. So this were typically the Hyperledger chains, where you have a consortium of companies and they are agreeing that they are all working together. They all establish node operation, node infrastructure, and so on. But and this this worked like for roughly like 5 years, 4 to 5 years. And now with the latest technological advancements, we are seeing like a new trend, which is going towards, which is called like a hybrid chain or an app chain. And this is essentially the best of both worlds. And I think it's like also required to make this breakthrough in the real world. So that companies have this private space, or organizations have this private space, that it should be easy to spin up. Ideally, it's also halfway managed by a provider like Spice5, simply because nobody in the consortium wants to get up at night at 4 o'clock to do a protocol update, or when something is crashed, to resolve the outage. This is why you typically have specialists who can take care of this. This is what then we are providing with Spice. And then this trend is going towards hybrid chains, where you have all the privacy which you need, but at the same time, you are fully interoperable with all of your assets, with all of your tokens. And then it starts to become quite interesting, because suddenly you can tie KYC to this. So you can have like a fully regulatory compliant chain. You can start to tokenize assets. You can start to tokenize bonds as well on it. And then also DeFi starts to become more interesting in the real world, when suddenly you can say, I could borrow some money from the bank, but if I go to a DeFi ecosystem, I could also borrow money from DeFi. And until now, this has been like a little bit maybe of a, I don't know, not to say like ridiculous idea for established organizations, but a challenging idea, because there's still like Tether and like many other cryptocurrencies, with which your funds are being backed up. But when you start to tokenize assets and you start to talk about state bonds, for example, that you actually back any money coming to the chain with state bonds, it's starting to become secure. It's starting to become like a lot more stable, and we can use the automation of blockchain. So I see like a huge potential in these hybrid chains, app chains, and how the ecosystems can start to connect through those chains to keep privacy and interoperability. I think you're on mute, Sebastian.
Sorry. That's actually really a thing. What I wanted to highlight from your point is that you said blockchain is a team game. So yeah, it's only providing value if many people come together. So maybe to Terry, this, because we have like already software, we have infrastructure, but you always need someone who creates a market to bring these value. So Terry, what are your thoughts on how maybe who could create these markets?
Great question, Sebastian. Thank you. Since I first became interested in crypto back in 2016, I've been looking for the killer applications that will facilitate real-world adoption of this technology. And as you just pointed out, the greatest technical solution with no market goes absolutely nowhere. Our critics have long seen crypto as a technology solution looking for a problem, and we've gone through the initial boom and bust hype cycles that tend to accompany all radical new technologies. But I believe that we're now on the cusp of a real breakthrough. Until recently, I think it's true that governments seem to have been the biggest stumbling blocks to DLT innovation and deployment. But it's no longer wishful thinking to say that governments are actively looking to deploy DLT to change those global systems that underpin our economies. And in many cases, those systems like banking haven't really changed much in decades. In the case of global trade, you could argue they haven't really changed in over 150 years. There's been a lot of buzz specifically in the IOTA community about the impending announcement of the European blockchain services infrastructure and the results of their pre-commercial trials that have been running for the last few years. IOTA is obviously a front runner in that project, but the implications of EBSI run far deeper and much wider than I think most people in the community realize. EBSI is just one of multiple global initiatives that are going to rely on blockchain-based technologies like IOTA. Modern economy runs on trade, but until just 2 months ago, the underlying transactions that power most global trade could only legally use original paper-based documents and certificates with so-called wet signatures or official stamps that needed to be passed from one party to another throughout a consignment's journey, often changing hands many times. These original documents get scanned and their data gets rekeyed into numerous separate silos. But at key points, only those single paper originals can be legally relied on to prove ownership, title, or control of the consignment. So the UK passed the Electronic Trade Documents Act, EDTA, in late September of this year, literally just weeks ago. It is, in my opinion, the most important law you've never heard of. And it gives digitalized trade documentation like bills of lading, certificates of origin, insurance certificates, airway bills, and more, stored on a blockchain, the same legal footing as their paper-based equivalents. And this is the first time in history that that's been true. And the ramifications of this are frankly mind-boggling. The UK government estimates that this move will reduce border processing times by up to 75% and boost the UK economy alone by over £1 billion over the next decade. The World Economic Forum suggests that blockchain-based digital trade could free up $250 billion in global efficiency savings and reduce carbon emissions from the global logistics industry by up to 12%. That's no small deal, but the definition of a digital document is one that A, cannot be duplicated or tampered with, and in the case of many trade documents like bills of lading, the document authenticity and ownership must be unique and immutable. Its history of provenance must also be provable and electronically transferable from one party to another, or put another way, these electronic versions of legacy paper documents must be non-fungible tokens. Governments are already specifying that they are looking for blockchain and DLT solutions to this problem in RFPs being issued around the world. Here at the Biotosphere, we've responded to one such request from the government of Canada. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist aiming for the moon to understand that these systems rely on DLT, NFTs, smart contracts, and much more. Now, because of course governments will not only be the great facilitators of these new solutions and applications, they'll also be the bottlenecks to adoption too, because nothing can happen until the required legislation is passed to support it. I think it's fair to say that the impetus for this is already building. When you consider the sheer number of global supply chain transactions that happen every minute of every day around the globe, it's natural to conclude that as these systems scale, the solutions offering the lowest transaction and smart contract fees and the fastest confirmation times will necessarily prosper and float to the top of the competitive heap. It's simple economics, and it's coming, I believe, to every trading nation in the next 5 years. The most successful solutions will be DLTs that support NFTs and secure digital IDs for humans, organizations, and devices. They need to be highly scalable and low cost to operate. Governments are not going to dictate any specific blockchain technology that must be used, but DLTs that can deliver on all these fronts are almost guaranteed to gain widespread global adoption. With the groundbreaking work that IF's TLIP project has been piloting with the governments of the UK and Kenya and other European jurisdictions, that should be welcome news for anyone holding IOTA. And anyone that doubts this should simply Google, should simply Google the United Nations Model Law on Electronic Transferable Records, as well as the ETDA that I just referred to before. This same technology that will power global supply chains getting products from producers to consumers is also going to be adopted in the new circular economies to track and trace our products from consumers back to raw materials and their treatment at end of life to ensure that everything that can be recycled is recycled, and it's going to be done in a way that's trusted, transparent, and publicly auditable to prevent greenwashing. The Cup Crush project that we described 3 years ago is essentially a reverse supply chain application with embedded extended producer responsibility payments tied to the digital twin of a disposable paper cup or a plastic bottle that provides financial incentives for sustainable behavior building towards circularity. Now, the incentives that are paid to consumers when they recycle their everyday items, from milk cartons to vehicle tires, from laptops to TVs, could even be sent directly to digital wallets like Adra's Energy Knip to be used to buy groceries or to pay for public transport or local utilities. So I hope that sort of answers your question.
Yes, thank you, actually. So I really like that your thoughts that you say the government are often a bottleneck, but maybe we are currently already past that bottleneck and finally have these regulatory clarity or moving towards that to really, really embrace the solutions that can be built on it. Also, let's focus more on these challenges and maybe also the solutions to these challenges. So, Holger, maybe to you, where you see additional challenges and how you think we should tackle them.
Yeah, I think a big part is the education, and then the regulatory aspects. But this has gotten like a lot better now over the past months, and I would say like a year since the European Union came out with MiCA and is like actively driving the governance, how blockchains need to be set up, what data can be saved on a blockchain, when is it a security, when is it like a governance token. That larger organizations actually have this confidence to work with the technology without being afraid that they have to, that they're standing with one leg in jail already. And then, of course, we have to recognize that it's a very new technology. So it's like cutting edge, bleeding edge. There's a lot of uncertainty simply because over the last 10 years, it was always like branded as the darknet money and everything else, what you have probably already heard. Apart from this, then it's technical implementation. And this is like one of the big points where we see like a lot of companies also starting to get established in order to limit the know-how, or to it's better to say like to fast track companies towards working with this technology. So we at Spice, you can also imagine that we can support organizations in building sort of like a secure Web3 environment, which they can connect to their cloud. Then they can use their cloud data to add this constantly onto the blockchain or into their private blockchain. And then again, they're completely interoperable. But if you ask a company, like, all right, now how do you get started? Like either they build up like a great tech team, they get the know-how on board, which is quite costly because there are not so many talents in the space, and or they work together with a partner and with a service provider in order to get this done. And this is then where we come in, where we say, if you want to manage your digital identities, if you want to have your data from the cloud in a private chain available to start interacting with it, to do digital product passports and so on, then we can support you with it. And you do not need to hire all the talent. You do not need to have a cryptocurrency in order to work with the blockchain. All of the complicated stuff goes behind the curtain. We take this over. And this is where we see that there we can make like really leaps, because then the companies and organizations, they can focus on their core competency. And it's always this make or buy decision. It's like, do I add additional know-how into my company? Do I pay for this to retain this know-how with those experts, or do I buy it from a service provider because my core competency is simply somewhere else, and this is a great means to upsell or to boost the confidence or to reduce risk, for example. And these are the things I think are like now most important. So regulatory aspects, education, and then also be able to fast track your way to the blockchain through specialists.
Thank you for that. Actually, Adri, you are also engaging with universities. So maybe to you, what or how you can maybe solve this problem of education, or maybe which other things you see as something that maybe is challenging currently the technology.
There is a lot of resistance, right? There's a lot of prejudice. There's a lot of misunderstanding when we talk about distributed ledger and blockchains in the wild, so to speak, right? The first thing you hear is, oh, it takes more energy than Argentina, etc. And of course, when we talk about blockchain, people hear Bitcoin, although we say blockchain. Right, and then I have to talk about the steam engine of the blockchain world, etc. So that's one thing. And Holger already mentioned it. There is a lot of explaining to do. So education is one of the keys to solve this. But there are many more other things, right? There are also other reasons why people are a little bit hesitant, to say the least, to work with blockchain. Let me get a picture again. This is how our multi-knip works, right? There's a municipality that has coins. They send it to people. They buy stuff at retailers. Retailers send the coins back to the municipality. And then the retailers send these coins back to get euros. Now, all these different parties don't know each other, don't trust each other. That's the basis of using blockchain. We're talking decentralization, immutability, transparency, all generating trust. So they need that trust machine, but they all have their own reason not to work with it, right? So the people at the municipality are afraid of losing their job, right? Terry spoke about 75% efficiency increase. well, somebody's going to lose a job, right? So they have their reasons. The people using coins are always a little bit hesitant because in the news there's this news flash, this scam, this crypto scam, etc. So they're hesitant. The retailers are hesitant because it's all new technology, and we all know innovation is hard. Innovating small companies is hard. Innovation at big companies is even harder, and innovating at a governmental level is the hardest of them all. So you have to see how many hurdles you have to take. And yeah, it's already mentioned, the biggest one is the lack of knowledge of how this technology works and how it delivers all the things where we can profit of, and all of us can profit of.
Super nice. Thank you. Thank you for actually adding that. I really like this thought what you or the point that you make, that this is a kind of the big topic now to how to tackle that. But I think through this format, for example, we also kind of providing this information and saying, hey, let's see multiple angles on a technology and see how we can drive further adoption. So let me maybe conclude a little bit what we heard today. So I think the main thing, the first point was that maintaining valuable partnerships are super crucial. It's not about building in isolation. It's about creating a blockchain ecosystem. So it's really about that. Then Terry had this super nice point where he showed how the different, I would say, governments worked towards creating this market, this environment. And yeah, maybe we can end this session with everyone having a really nice sum up, maybe 1 or 2 sentences, and yeah, to kind of summarize where you think is the most or what is the most important thing to drive DLT adoption. So let's start with Terry.
So thanks, Sebastian. As it's been pointed out, these things are complicated, and we all look for the answer to the big question: when? When is this going to happen? When will we see change, and will it be in our lifetime? I think that the introduction of things like the UK Electronic Trade Documents Act has created the first legal framework for the tokenization of trade and logistics. And we're going to see an explosion of adoption in the next 5 years that really is going to be quite remarkable. We've even got global shipping companies who are talking about the fact that they will be converting to 100% tokenized electronic bills of lading by 2030. And that's just 6 years from now, which is really quite remarkable. And once this starts, the implications will fundamentally pivot. And I think we're going to see the world as we know it rapidly switch over to blockchain-based solutions. When governments look to adopt a new technology and facilitate or mandate its use through legislation, as opposed to passing legislation that bans it or precludes it, you know that adoption at scale can't be far behind. DLT fundamentally changes the game in global trade and the finance of that trade. And in my opinion, it's no longer a case of if and only when we'll see the technology impacting almost every aspect of our daily lives. Our biggest challenge is going to be human adoption. But we're a species that's proven to be very good at adaptation and adoption. And I've never been more optimistic about the future of DLT in general and IOTA in particular.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry. It was promising to never stop believing in humanity. And I also think that this at some point will happen. And so, Adri, what are your last conclusion thoughts, or where you would like to push in driving DLT adoption?
Well, I think we have to stop selling the engine. All right, people buy cars, not engines. So if we want mass adoption, we just need a few killer apps, and which will work with Web3, with distributed ledger technology. People don't have to know that it is blockchain. As soon as they see, they experience the big increase in efficiency and the ease of use, then it'll win these people over by itself. So let's not push too hard on the fact that we're using blockchain, distributed ledger technologies, and all the technical ins and outs. As soon as people have blockchain applications on their phone, like they now have internet on their phone, they will hardly be able to stop using it.
Thank you very much. Holger, last things for you.
Yeah, thanks, Sebastian. I also think we are just at the beginning. Even if the beginning has been going on like for 10 years now, or longer, since the first inception of Bitcoin, but there was a lot of grayish area. But what speaks for blockchain is that the whole regulatory aspects, they have been picking up tremendous speed over the last 3 years. The research and the technology is also starting to come to an end. There's a little bit of sharding. I mean, what needs to be like researched as well. At the moment, everything is scaling through layer 2, layer 3, so a blockchain on a blockchain on a blockchain in the end. But I think it's like good enough for this first step that we can start to see how the technology adopts in niche cases, like tokenization of assets. And then we can see how does the tech work. Well, I'm saying no niche case, it makes it maybe a little bit too small, but essentially we can see how the tech works in this use case. And from that point on, we can start to automate further, because we can also see the blockchain as a huge automation engine. It's a peer-to-peer connected, automatically updated, fully redundant network which exists everywhere on the planet. And we can use it for far more than just tokenization. We can use it for secure information exchange and many other things directly between participants. So I still think we are only at the beginning. I'm fully with Adri. We will only see the blockchain adoption probably like under the hood, not very prominent with a big sign. But I still think like it's here to stay. And even if you don't see it very obviously, it will power simply most of the processes in 10 years.
That's actually a good point where you said, or Adi also said this, mentioning they won't buy engines but cars, and we as at Decodus, we are really good in assembling and bringing together all the different parts to then, or we have the capability to in the end build a whole car and bring it to the market, or help to build this whole car. So I really want to thank you, everyone who joined this call. Please also check out a link in the comment section to get even further information. And yeah, just remember, it's just the beginning, and make sure to check this link out. Stay connected, and I'm looking forward to the next LinkedIn Live. Thank you.
Engineering a smarter future together.